Hello, thank you for joining us. This is Platform. I'm Ruth Aguele. The Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative was implemented by the present administration as an alternative fuel source following the removal of fuel subsidy. Now, that is to ease the burden of high cost of transportation for Nigerians. This initiative aims to also lower carbon emissions and foster economic growth by encouraging the adoption of CNG vehicles. Rollout of CNG buses to support different strata of the society commenced last year, which is still ongoing. That is part of efforts to address climate change, promote cleaner energy, and drive sustainable growth. Although the adoption of CNG is expected to reduce reliance on imported fossil fuels, thereby saving billions of dollars annually and fostering job creation, that is through the development of CNG infrastructure. But there are challenges in meeting growing demands due to certain factors. So the question is, how much effort is being put in place to subsidize conversion rates and promote more usage of the CNG? On Platform, our focus is sustaining efforts towards CNG initiative. And we have a guest in the studio, Hadiza Lawal. She's the coordinator, Platform, Deployment and Recovery from the Presidential Initiative on CNG. Thank you so much for joining us, Madam Hadiza.
Thank you so much, Ruth. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. And just before we bring in our panelists, let's let you in on who Hadiza is. Hadiza Yahaya Lawal is a seasoned finance professional with 10 years experience spanning across academia, private and public sectors. Demonstrated expertise in financial management, investment strategies, and risk management. She has a proven track record of optimizing financial operations, driving strategic investment decisions, and enhancing fiscal accountability. That was for Katsina State Government. Well, she has been head of finance at the PICNG, that's the Presidential Initiative CNG Limited. She has a strong background in auditing, financial controls, and strategic policy management. She combines a deep understanding of financial principles with a proactive approach of problem solving. She lectures part-time at Bayes University and previously consulted for AFDB and served at the Nigerian Ports Authority and Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Hadiza is pursuing her PhD in Islamic finance, and also she holds an MSc from SOAS University of London and a BSc from Sussex University. She is affiliated with ANAN, the CFA program, the CIMA program, and is a licensed capital market operator. So what are you not into when it comes to financial business, Hadiza? Well done. So we can, comfortably call you the financial guru.
If you say so.
Okay. All right. Our panelist is one of our correspondents here in NTA, the vibrant Ayodeji Makinde. Ayo, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks so much, Ruth, as well.
All right. So, Hadiza, the CNG initiative, when the rollout, of buses started last year, people embraced it. We saw comments, critics, and all of that. But it's still been sustained, and which is highly commendable. And just few days ago we saw the donation to the NRC and a couch, which is very impressive. But you tell us, where are we right now in the rollout process and also in ensuring that this initiative is sustained?
So I'll start by giving you a brief. So when the initiative was born in 2023, the rollout started in May 2024. We started our first deployment of assets across the country, covering Lagos, Abuja, Ekiti, Oyo, to name but a few states within the country. And over the span of 2024-2025, I can tell you we've done over 16,000 conversions till date. We've worked with a number of transporters, so that's including the unions, including the tricycle operators, including aggregators, to ensure that we deploy over 400 buses and 700 tricycles. And this has been to catalyze and ensure the sustainable, reduced transportation for Nigerians.
Okay, so before Ayo comes in, I know this is when we're talking the deployment and recovery, that's a subsidiary of the PICNG. You want to break that down for us?
Okay, so the platform deployment and recovery is primarily engaged in deployment of assets, and these assets are comprised of the mobility assets. So we have the buses, we have the tricycles, and we deploy these assets with state operators as well as private operators and the unions. So we work with the unions to ensure that the subsidy and the discounted fares due to the economic savings that the CNG provide are translated to the masses. Also, we have the refueling and the conversion partners. So when you come out to do a conversion, you need to go to an accredited conversion center. So as a conversion partner, you register with the PCNGI. The technical D team does an inspection, and you get your accreditation from the NEDDC. And after that has been done, you do the conversion. The QAQC checks to ensure that you're converted in line with regulatory requirements.
You know, that's the aspect that we're getting to, that the challenge lies, that regulatory aspect. But let's have Ayo come in.
Oh, yes, thanks so much, Ruth. It's interesting to know because many of us really followed it on May 29, 2023 when the president said subsidy was gone. And most people believed this should have possibly been announced before the declaration of removal of subsidy. Now, for about 2 years, we had an initial hype with the CNG coming people to go to the conversion. Many doubted the process. Some still do not believe in it as we're talking right now. What efforts are really gone into conviction to make people believe that that is really the way to go? Because I still have people, as of today, that will tell you, never will I put my account CNG.
Because of the fear. It's part of the concerns, Hadiza. You agree with us?
I agree with you. So like my program director always says, you have to inform to reform. So we started with a nationwide stakeholder engagement across the country, trying to convince and also do a public awareness campaign of what the CNG is, what the fuel adoption, why it's an alternative to the PMS, why it's cleaner, why it's cheaper. So we've been able to convince a significant amount of that population. So even within the country, you'd see that we've done over 50,000 conversions actively within the country, 16,000 that has been directly catalyzed by the CNG. And also you have the private sector who has also integrated in. So primarily our mandate has been to catalyze the investment. And just 2 days ago, you have Bovas opening 2 refueling stations in Ibadan, and this is as a result of demand for gas. So we're changing the narrative now. So it's no longer an issue of the fear with regards to conversion, but rather we need more refueling stations. You find that the tune has changed to the too many queues. We need to have more refueling stations to ease the demand on the existing refueling stations. Last month, we opened AYM Shafa, and he intends to also...
If you keep calling these names, we're going to charge you. Okay, go ahead, please.
So also, NNPC opened another station in Abuja just last month, bringing that to a total count of about 20 stations under construction for the CNG. And so overall, the narrative has changed. So there's a lot of demand and there's a lot of subscription to CNG.
But you also agreed to the fact that the queues are growing, yes. Which is what we didn't want to see for the fossil fuel, and now we're seeing it for the CNG. I know it's a lot because it's a PP arrangement, the public-private arrangement. They have to buy into this, which we're seeing this private sector coming, embracing this initiative. But the question is, how are we going to have more conversion centers, number one, and more filling stations? Because a lot of people who want to, just convert their vehicles, the challenge, the discouragement is, where do I go fuel? Some people will have to travel, certain kilometers before they get a filling station. What is the synergy you're getting? Tell us how much investment this private sector is ready to put into this to push to have this rollout commensurate with what we're having?
So far, we've had over $500 million worth of investment in the CNG sector. And I can tell you, currently, we have over 150 refueling stations in the pipeline on the construction. So from the likes of different investors that have keyed into the CNG economic sector. Also, conversion centers, we've registered over 250 partners. So we have presence in 20 states across the country, which is significant for a program that started in 2024.
Okay. But I asked about the synergy, the investment, this private sector is willing to put.
So the synergy is what you're seeing. What we do, we catalyze, we encourage the investment. So the synergy, the private partners that come on board, that's primarily due to the fact that there's demand for the CNG. The investment that you see the likes of the PMS actors like Bovas, AYM, Shefa, currently trying to roll out stations across the country is being skyrocketed due to the reforms that we have ongoing, the stakeholder engagement across the country, across state operators. So that's the synergy that you're seeing.
Okay.
Well, let's beam the searchlight on the few arrangements that you've made, or in terms of collaboration that you've made with some unions. You said the initial rollout, you engaged different transport unions, tricycle unions, to ensure that the everyday worker, the everyday people have a feel of this initiative. But there still seem not to be much difference if you take a closer look at it. I was just telling you before we started the program that I discussed with a few friends that there's this topic that we'll discuss on the program today, and they're like, oh, please can you get us this and this and this. Now let's take a look at this collaboration that you have with the NURTW and some other unions out there. How do you get to monitor that some of these support that you've given to them to cushion the effect on the everyday people are not diverted into personal use, and it really gets to the people that matter?
Okay. So the framework that we're operating, so we've collaborated with the likes of the NURTW, the RETN, the NATO, and we've ensured that we've deployed these assets along the CNG refueling corridors. So why along the CNG refueling corridor is so that they can have the economic savings that the CNG is providing with regards to lower refueling cost. And they translate that into discounted fares for the riders, for the commuters. And in doing so, we have a monitoring team, we have trackers, we have engaged a revenue collector directly to ensure that there's transparency, there's accountability in the process, and to ensure that for every route there's at least 30% discount. So this extends to some routes to about 50%, depending on whether it's a complete CNG route or it's a one-way CNG route.
Well, in addition to that, there's still some of these public transport companies who I've met, and they've told me, yes, it really reduces cost of using the fossil fuel, but when they consider the amount of conversion to switch the engine to the CNG, if they put it together, it's just better to manage the few ones that they have and keep business floating, because it's really going to affect profit. Are you really looking into ensuring that for those with these legitimate and genuine intentions get some further assistance so that it could now really spread round the places that you have presence?
Okay, so we have an ongoing conversion incentive program where we're also working with the unions and all commercial operators, so licensed commercial operators, to ensure that they get this kit free, and we also take care of the cost of conversion, just so we can encourage the adoption, have more vehicles out there running in CNG. So that's part of the Renewed Hope Clean Transit Scheme.
Okay, but there was a subsidized program, which is what you're talking about, that started last year. You're working rather with, transport workers, the different sectors. But again, what about for private, vehicle owners? I remember last time I engaged one of the initiative members, the the Presidential Initiative members, and he talked about the concerns for having private vehicle owners, having subsidized prices for conversion, which is something the federal government, according to him, will be looking at towards the end of 2024. We had that conversation early 2024. So this is 2025, going 2 years into the program. I'm just speaking on behalf of Nigerians who are willing to have this conversion done. You agree with me that it's not really cheap, right? Okay.
Okay. So the initial pilot phase started with a focus on commercial riders, commercial people within the commercial sector, the transporters, as well as the riders. And what we did is, as long as you're a commercial rider, either an in-drive user, a Bolt, so the rideshare companies, you could get a subsidized conversion cost. And we are facilitating that. Whereas for the complete commercial operators, you had free conversion kits just to encourage adoption. And also in doing so, what we've been able to do is we've worked with, we have a current program ongoing, which is the CNG Sprouts program. We're catalyzing the entire academia sector, where we're trying to offer discounted conversions for lecturers within the academic ecosystem. And in doing so, we deployed our assets as donations, so the tricycles, the buses, so that students within the campus can enjoy subsidized transport fares, as well as subsidized conversions for anybody that wants to participate in that CNG Sprout program. Also, what we're doing is we're working with, like you mentioned, the NRC to provide shuttle services from the station into town. So when people pay a discounted transport fare to get from one city to another, you end up paying a higher fare just to get from the station into town. So in partnering with stakeholders such as the NRC, we're able to further continue to drive that discount along the entire value chain, not just ending at the train station.
So it stops for commercial purposes. No hope in sight for private, vehicle owners. With the price, I know the concern has been in the importation of these conversion kits. That's where the cost is. Is there hope in sight?
So we've also set up the CAM Fund, which is the Credit Access for Light and Mobility. So what that does is it allows private sector to key in using the credit card as well as the participating financial institution to access finance. So finance is going to allow them get converted over time and pay that conversion.
Like a loan?
Yes.
Oh, great. So there's hope in sight.
There is.
Okay.
Well, let's speak to some facts now. As of 2025 January, Nigeria is recorded to have at least 210 trillion cubic feet of gas, and with a reserve to production of 93 years. As many people are watching this program, millions now, right now, some will still have that doubt in themselves that perhaps this wasn't well planned out, and it is the reason why the effect is not being felt across board. But if you can speak to this, if in the last 2 years the momentum has staggered a little bit, what are the challenges that is really preventing the effective implementation of the initiative nationwide? Remember, the roads are always busy.
So, give you a fact.
Yes.
So primarily when we do the CNG involves transportation using the pipelines. And where we do not have adequate infrastructure, this gas has to be liquefied and then transported. So this is where you have a barrier for the northern states. Mostly the infrastructure doesn't exist, but within the next 10 to 12 months, we expect to have massive infrastructure yielded out, and then also Greenville as well as Rolling Energy have taken on a project to ensure that we have mini LNG plants across the northern states. So over the next 12 to 18 months, we should see a lot of traction with regards to infrastructural investment and expansion to the other northern states.
Which is very key, especially because we know how blessed Nigeria is, even in gas, like Ayo mentioned. But what about building capacity? Because if the challenge there you're talking about is infrastructure, that's where the gap lies. What strategy is the CNG adopting to build capacity and, cover these loopholes?
So far we have over 150 workshops under construction. We've trained over 4,900 technicians within the CNG value chain. So overall, we're building capacity, we're building awareness, and most importantly, we have presence in 20 states within the country, 9 in the north.
No, speak more about the capacity building of a thing, because if you take a look at most of the centers, I knew at the initial stage people were trained, brought in to really ease the transition from installation of the kits to the CNG. But one major challenge then was the adequacy of manpower. You talked about a certain number of people, a figure, have been trained. Surely, with the expansion that you have on ground, there might not be enough in the long run.
So this is a continuous program, and like I pointed out, we've launched the CNG Sprout, which is an academia ecosystem. So what we're doing with this program is we're setting up conversion centers through the FEMEDEC. They got the funding from MDGIF, conversion centers as well as refueling centers, and we've donated assets, so mobility assets, tricycles, and buses. And we're collaborating with the university to set up a curriculum. That curriculum allows for knowledge transfer right within the university. So we've done a flag off of the first one in Abuja. We intend to do 6 more between now and 3 months. And then overall, the project is going to cover 20 universities within the country. Yes.
So, but from the flag off you did here in Abuja, what was the reception like from the students? Are they keen into this initiative? Because you're creating job opportunity even while in school for them.
They've keyed in. Just this morning, the VC of the University of Abuja rode one of our buses, and they can tell you it's a welcome development. The students are happy, the subsidized fare, they see the opportunities, and Nigeria is primarily a gas nation more than a PMS.
There's one concern, part of this capacity building. You mentioned regulatory aspect, and you also mentioned that you have your monitoring team. I'm taking you back. Okay. What's the feedback you're getting? If you're empowering these young people, what about people who are already empowered but not in the appropriate manner? Because we're hearing reports of exploded CNG vehicles. So part of your mandate is to regulate the system. And if you have your monitoring team, you should be getting feedback as to where these concerns are. What is happening? Are people just converting their vehicles by their own know-how, knowledge, or what is going on?
Okay, so I'll take you back as well. So like I pointed out earlier, so when you come, so we have 2 tranches. You can either register with us as a conversion partner or a refueling partner. And when you engage with the PCNGI as a conversion partner, that involves carrying out an inspection. So the technical team does an inspection to ensure that the site as well as your technicians are fit for purpose. The NADDC has to accredit you. So once you get that accreditation, post-conversion, the QAQC team does an inspection to ensure that we've met all quality control and assurance. So the important message here is for people that go out there to do conversions, ensure that you're doing your conversion with an accredited partner of the PCNGI. So not just any conversion center. So that's part of the efforts that we've made to regulate and ensure that conversions are being done right.
Well, has anyone been found wanting for doing an improper job and they're not certified? That's a tough one, right?
Yeah, but you can actually speak to it,
Yes, you can
surely.
speak to
Nigerians
it.
need to know.
So yes, that's the importance of regulation. So when you're found to have done something that's not in line with expectations or is not in line with the regulatory framework, yes, there's an enforcement, there's a protocol line that we enforce to ensure that all conversion partners do what is expected of them.
I think there's still something deeper that I want you to look into. We talked about accredited partners and licensed partners that can carry out this conversion. There have been instances where hands trained in this art of conversion have been let go. And instead of staying hungry or not getting employed, they bring the knowledge to start doing it without having a proper licensed office or licensed workshop. Now, in such a situation with the economic realities that we have in the country, if I know, for instance, you used to work at Ruth's Conversion Company before you were let go, I can surely believe your judgment to do a good job on a vehicle. How do we really monitor this beyond the quality control, the close monitoring, the protocol process, to ensure that hands that have been trained in the art are now operating under different name of cloud, do not use it for the wrong means?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have the Nigerian Gas Vehicle Monitoring System, which is the NGVMS,
Okay.
which is going to be launched soon. And what that does is it profiles all conversions and ensures when you go to a refueling center, they check to ensure that you have actually gone to an accredited conversion centers. They ensure that the kit that has been installed isn't an expired kit. There are no leakages. And so that's part of the control frameworks that we're putting in place, just to ensure that we go beyond conversion to the point of refueling to make it safe for all Nigerians.
Would you say that the burden is a tough one if you have to be everywhere? Because what Ayo pointed out is that there are still persons who are not certified, who are not professionals, that was because of the little knowledge they have, they will still want to set up their own. And because of the high cost of conversion, and they can't afford the original conversion kits, because it's imported, do you have the capacity, the manpower to reach out? Is there a challenge there?
There's no challenge. So we work with a number of stakeholders. For the NGVMS, it's not just primarily, so it's an intergovernmental relationship.
Okay.
So we're working with Custom, we're working with SON, we're working with NADDC, we're working with Federal Road Safety. So all these players have a role to play in ensuring that right from when kits are imported, the due diligence is being done to ensure that we're not importing expired cylinders. When they get to the conversions, the NADDC ensures that it has been an accredited conversion partner. So when you get to the point of refilling, we also ensure that you've gone through the entire right channel.
Okay, so when we come back from a break, we're about to take a break, you're going to teach, or rather enlighten Nigerians on how to sustain your CNG converted vehicle, that is if you have done one. So let's take a break, we'll be back.
What are we doing as a nation to first of all settle our teeming populace, especially the youth?
NTA's political package with a third eye on the nation's political scene. I'm Fisa Ogunfuyi. Welcome.
You have to be very careful giving space to people who are obviously sponsored to further the agenda of some other groups.
There's a lot of questions. A lot of questions in a closed door sessions. Some of these issues, some of the problems bedeviling of their.
In fact, between June 1st and July 17, 19-point-something billion has left the coffers of the NDDC.
I can say my constituency, they need everything because we don't have anything.
A method for digital literacy is a bot that you can use, you can interact to learn more about digital literacy.
Hello, it's our pleasure to have you join us on platform. I'm Ruth Aguwele.
What is the yardstick for measuring everybody's moral integrity? It's critical at this point in time.
How daunting has that been for the Institute in getting them abreast with all the legislative procedures?
The fact remains that one training workshop is not enough.
Thank you for staying tuned. The conversation is sustaining efforts towards the CNG initiative. Hadiza, before we took the break, we're just going to speak on ways you can enlighten Nigerians on, okay, so I've converted I haven't done it yet. I'm just using myself as an example. You've converted your vehicle, you know, to the CNG. And there are this myth, or rather, personal belief that when, you know, the weather is so hot, the cylinder can just explode, you know. I want you to correct that notion. Is it really true?
No.
Okay.
So, you know, there's a difference between cooking gas and the CNG. So the CNG is lighter than air, so which means even when there's an accident, it evaporates. So it's very safe, safer than PMS. And the important thing is just to ensure after you've done your conversion, just do a check regularly and then ensure that the cylinder, which is the important component, has a lifespan. So ensure you do checks regularly to ensure that that doesn't expire.
So would you say it's because of maybe an expired cylinder or not the right liquefied gas that was used for those vehicles that exploded, or during the combustion? Where did the error come from?
So usually errors like that come from expired cylinder and then when there's a leakage. So that's why you check regularly to ensure that there are no CNG leaks. And it's important to ensure that you always do your conversions with an accredited conversion centers where the technicians have been trained.
Okay.
Right, now let's, one of the 8 key priority areas of the president is energy, renewable energy, and of course clean energy and the rest. With so much about CNG, but I also know that the initiative also looks into electric vehicles. I've seen a few of them on Nigerian roads. And what is the level of acceptance of this, and what role has it got to play in the long run to achieve the mandate of the president on getting cleaner energy and also reduce emissions in the country?
Okay, so our mandate is not just, so we're incentivizing and catalyzing the adoption of CNG and EVs within the country. And in doing so, we're trying to deploy assets, especially where there isn't presence of CNG, with EV vehicles and EV tricycles. And also the EV buses that you've seen around is also going to cater to shuttle services just to ease the transportation burden for masses. So we're working with stakeholders such as the NRC and also FAN in deploying those assets across the country.
Curious, if the CNG is still a gradual process in terms of acceptability, Nigeria, we know our challenge as a nation when it comes to power. Are people ready from I'm sure you have done an assessment. Are people ready to embrace the e-vehicle, the CNG e-vehicle?
So people are ready to embrace, and I'll tell you why. The impact is easy. So why CNG? It's cleaner. It saves you more. So for a distance coverage of, say, from here to Kaduna, I'll give you a typical example. So if your refueling costs are 40,000, with refueling of 9,000, you get to the same distance, you cover the same kilometers. So it's a game of numbers. You're already saving on the fueling costs. It's less emissions, and you're also adding to net zero campaign. So all the perks are there for people to
I'm talking about the electric aspect.
So even for electric aspects, less carbon footprint, as you move to an alternative energy source.
I'm sure you know where I'm driving at. When you have to recharge
Yes,
your
yes.
vehicle.
Maintenance
In
and
other
charging
climes,
ports,
you could
yeah.
just park your vehicle and there are ports, at
Around.
different points where you can just charge your vehicle and go do what you're doing. You don't have to even do it in your home. Are we ready for that?
So as we deploy this asset, especially the buses across the country, we're also working to ensure that on routes that they cater to, you have the charging stations to ensure that there's no stopgap. So it's a fully thought out model to ensure there are no hindrances to
When
operation.
will that be fully implemented?
The EV buses have already been implemented within Abuja.
Okay, just
So
within
like you
Abuja.
pointed out, you've seen
If-
the
if-
EV
if
buses
you have
around.
them, yes.
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 No, I'm talking about spreading it and expanding the scope.
As we expand the
Or is just
infrastructure,
a trial?
as we expand, we're in the pilot phase. So
Okay.
as we expand infrastructure that caters to charging, we're also going to expand the deployment of these assets along those corridors.
Okay.
Well, we've spoken about collaboration with the PCNGI and different bodies here in the country. But one thing that strikes me, because I have quite a handful of them as uncles and the rest, the elderly. In this day and age of economic realities that we have in the country, some would want to believe that there should be a deliberate effort to ensure that retirees, the elderly, and even people with disability have direct access to the facilities and services provided by the PCNGI. How would you react to this?
Okay, so currently I'll give you an example. So with the tricycles that we've deployed, we're also working to ensure the association, Disability Keke Association, also get this asset donated to them just as a CSR program as part of our palliative project being run by the initiative.
Now, what about the elderly?
So even for the elderly, we will cater to that. So you come to us with expression of interest and would ensure that not just the youths, but also the elderly are catered for within the CNG ecosystem.
The elderly I was talking about, are they going, is it for the tricycle or for their vehicles?
So all mobility assets. So when we talk about mobility assets, that's encompassing tricycles and buses. But buses are run by private operators, but there's no discrimination. So you go to use any of the buses, the discounted fares applies to all. So not just the youth.
the special, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So everybody benefits.
You know why I asked that question? We had a conversation with, persons with disabilities, and part of their concerns, accessibility, which has been their challenge, that the CNG buses that is supposed to bring this subsidy, the subsidized rates for transportation and ease their burden, they are not being put into consideration in the aspect of access into the vehicles. That was the concern for some of them. I'm just quoting what they said. So you tell us. I have not entered any of the CNG buses, so I don't know how it looks like. So tell us, is there provision for that already, or that will be put into consideration?
So what I can tell you is assets that we've deployed all over, we do not operate these assets, but we monitor and ensure that fares are discounted for every Nigerian. And every Nigerian is entitled to access.
It's not about the fare now I'm talking about. It's already subsidized when it's a CNG.
Yes.
I'm talking about the access into the bus for them, like having a ramp now for persons with disabilities who are
So
in
for-
wheelchair.
So for persons with disability, we've actually programmed deployment of tricycles primarily to this.
For tricycles, what about the
tricycles.
buses?
So for the buses, even if they come to us with a demand, yes, it's something that we can cater to.
That's what I'm speaking.
Yes, the
So that
tricycle.
will be put into consideration. So there is hope in sight.
Of course, there's hope in sight.
Okay, great.
Well, coordinator, how do we really distinguish services rendered by some of these CNG vehicles and buses and those not? Because I know many of these e-cab operators here in the Federal Capital Territory, they are quite nasty. They're renowned for doing that. Even when they have been converted to the CNG, they will still tell you they're using fossil fuel, and then they bill you above average. Yeah. And you have a few of them who will be sincere and say, oh, well, the strip that was ordinarily to cost you about $4,000. The reason why you're paying 2,1 is because I'm on CNG. Now, how do we get a reporting mechanism or a complaint platform to really rate the services, since government is really investing in this to make life better, but some people most times prefer to just make things difficult? What are the channels of relaying the feedback to the PCNGI?
So we have a helpline, and for any of the routes where there are compliance issues with regards to the operators complying with the fares stipulated, you call that helpline and we address it immediately, even with regards to conversions as well. So with regards to commercial operators, so especially the Bolt, the in-drive users that have converted, that's beyond our control. Okay. But it's
because they're still privately
exactly
owned.
But it's a situation whereby at the end of the day, the forces of demand and supply will cater. So when there are more people out there who have converted and are willing to bring down the price of the transport fare due to the fact that they have economic savings of CNG, then it's an issue of how many of those do we have out there, and at the end of the day, competition will rule out higher fares. So it's a game of numbers, and over the long run, we expect that the market will adjust itself.
You know, you just mentioned the number. Is it a toll-free number or it's a proper number?
It's a toll-free number.
Okay, so you just mentioned, I'm just getting to know that there's a toll-free number. Now, I'm just calculating in my head how many more Nigerians are aware that they can reach out, you know, when there is a challenge. You know why I'm asking that? Especially in the aspect of sensitization. Is the PICNG, you know, looking at deploying strategies to, beyond just telling people, okay, come and convert your vehicles, this is what the federal government is doing. What about sensitizing them on the, you know, affordability, the safety, and making them know that you can actually lay your complaint when you notice anything wrong?
So we've done a public awareness campaign, and then we continue to do a public awareness campaign. And on the buses, we have a hotline. So that helps you redirect any complaints. So that's been taken into consideration when it comes to branding. And just June 12th, Democracy Day, we launched the Free Week campaign on the tricycles. So there was an entire rally within Abuja, tricycles, and everybody benefited from free rides from the Abuja Metropolis to Lifecam to Jabi. And there was a lot of social media. I think NTA covered it as well, NTA Hausa. So that's part of the public awareness campaign that we're doing to ensure that assets are out there and people are informed that this mobility assets are providing you with discounted fares to ease the burden of transportation and make it sustainable for all Nigerians.
And talking about sustainability plan, the infrastructure, is there hope inside where Nigeria will begin to, you know, make this kits, this conversion kits on our own? These partners you're bringing in to invest, I'm talking about international partners now, is there, you know, plans on ground to ensure that Nigeria also builds its capacity to be able to produce these kits?
So Nigeria first. So I'll tell you, for the buses that we've deployed, they've all been deployed using local manufacturers. So the likes of Kojo, the likes of Innocent, the likes of Luigi. So we've really enforced that Nigeria first. And it's also the fact that it's a new technology. So we're also translating to ensure that where the knowledge gap exists, we improve. But at the end of the day, we're putting the manufacturers first. So there is a lot of local content.
Nice.
And moving forward, how much of collaboration have you really had with indigenous automobile manufacturers in the country? Because most of them have in stock vehicles made, not for CNG purposes, but for the fossil fuel. How much of engagement have you been able to have with them that if they really go into massive production of CNG vehicles, it eases the pressure of conversion in the first instance. Then you can easily buy a brand new car, even if it's a second rate, where you know it's already a converted vehicle, you only take it for assessment.
So the unions will tell you now they're already engaged, because what we've done is catalyzed. So the unions
Talking
will
about
tell
automobile manufacturers in the country.
automobile manufacturing. So the automobile manufacturing, so the likes of Innocent, like I pointed out, Kojo, are all Nigerian manufacturers, Jet Motors. So all those are domiciled within the country, and they're automobile manufacturers.
How about car vehicle dealers, those who import out vehicles into the country?
So even those, so the important thing is to incentivize, which we've done. We're seeing a lot of investment in the sector, and we're seeing a lot of inflow with regards to EVs as well as the CNG vehicles into the country, so private sector. So that's what we wanted to achieve, and like I pointed out, we've seen investments worth over $500 million come into the country.
You know, you make it sound all rosy. Are there challenges that the PICNG is dealing with, especially when you're working with this road transport workers?
Stakeholders.
You know, yes, complying and all of that. Even for private owners, what are some of the complaints you've received? Where are the gaps really?
Okay, so I'll tell you, the complaints majorly are around refueling infrastructure.
Okay.
We don't have, we've been able to achieve primarily using PCNG housing conversions across the country. I think we've tracked over 50,000 conversions, which is a good number in a year, just pilot scheme. So the main complaints we're getting all over is we need more refueling stations. The queues are long, which is a good complaint because Rome wasn't built in a day, and we've moved from last year where it was more about encouragement, sensitization, getting people to actually convert to their vehicles, the whole stigma around the cylinders, the explosions. And now it's a case of we've converted, but we need the gas.
A sign that people embrace.
So it's a good sign, and I can tell you, we have over 150 refueling stations in constructions.
You know, a Nazi professor once told me that when you say Rome wasn't built in a day, there are some certain individuals, if you allow them, they will build Rome for you in 2 hours because of desperation that they really have in them. The major challenge of these installation kits, which is still a huge burden for most Nigerians that want to convert, people would ask, why are we still not talking about subsidizing it? Because I think if the price goes down, yeah, we all know it's being imported into the country. Surely it will lead to much embrace from people.
So we have a conversion incentive program, and
that I can access.
Yes. So under that conversion incentive program, as long as you're within the commercial sector, you get the kits discounted as well as free.
And Nigerians can.
And Nigerians can.
But is the awareness, access to information is power. They said information is power.
Yes, like I told you.
So how are you going to put that information that, yes, Ayo can get his vehicle converted?
So public awareness campaign, we've done that. We've engaged with a number of stakeholders. That's why we're using the unions. We're working with operators. We're working with states. We're working with aggregators, just so we can get this message out there.
In different languages, I guess? In
different languages, jingles, adverts, and even branding all over the country. So the coach that we recently just launched at the NRC carries the branding of the PCNGI, and that's also a way of enlightenment. So you have the train transporting over 900 passengers every time, and so it's good branding and it's good enlightenment for Nigerians to know that CNG exists. With the shuttle services, they can see the benefits with reduced transportation fare into town, a fare that's so competitive to what other PMS vehicles are doing within the station. So that's enlightenment.
Someone raised the concern for me. That's why I asked that question. He kept coming to the Nigerian Television Authority headquarters because he's looking for access to the PICNG. Do you have a portal is there, how do people get this, reach the PICNG when they want information like that? Talking about, even he was trying to convert his, he was trying to go into the business of converting keke napeps, you know, to CNG rather.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
how do people get this information?
so we're on all social media platforms. So from LinkedIn to Twitter to Instagram. And we're also located, our office here is in Abuja. You can directly send an expression of interest and tell us how you intend to engage. And we'll take it up from there.
Fantastic. We'll leave the conversation there, Hadiza Lawal. Thank you so much for enlightening Nigerians. She is the coordinator of Platform Deployment and Recovery, PICNG. That's the Presidential Initiative, CNG. Thank you very much for letting us in and, you know, giving me and IO free access to come and convert our vehicles for free.
I'll get permission from my program director.
All right, so thank you so much, IO. Thank you
Surely,
for your
Ruth,
contribution.
anytime it's been revealing again today, and of course,
And we have a
many
deal with
Nigerians.
Hadiza.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
We're very much in line with the Renewed Hope agenda to ensure that there's cleaner, safer, more affordable and sustainable transportation for all Nigerians.
And you've heard it, you know, the CNG initiative is actually cleaner and safer. And it is the Renewed Hope era. So there is hope inside. And the CNG for Nigeria, you know, is the future of transportation. And that's Platform. I'm Ruth Aguwele. Bye.